Hi, my name is Elizabeth Jackson. This is a comparative analysis of English and Spanish. The three aspects that I will be comparing today are sound inventory, syllable structure, and word order differences and similarities between English and Spanish. When comparing the sound inventory of Spanish to that of English, there are notable differences in the number and types of sounds each language uses. Spanish has a simpler vowel system with 5 pure vowels. Please look carefully at how each letter is said. A, E, I, O, U. These vowels are relatively stable and do not change significantly in different contexts. English, on the other hand, has a more complex vowel system with around 12 to 14 vowels, depending on dialect, including both pure vowels and diphthongs. For example, English distinguishes between short and long vowels, such as I as in bit and I as in kite. You should note that the Spanish E sounds like the English A. The Spanish I sounds like the English E. This can pose a problem for beginning speakers when they are first learning the non-native language. Regarding consonants, Spanish lacks certain sounds that are common in English. For instance, the English sh sound, as in ship, does not exist in standard Spanish. The th sound, as in think, is present in English, but present only in some dialects of Spanish. Spanish has its own sounds that English does not have. The Spanish J is pronounced yo, which is similar to the English yo, but rougher than how it is pronounced in English. These differences can lead to pronunciation challenges for learners of either language. Both Spanish and English typically follow a subject-verb-object word order in simple declarative sentences, but there are key differences in flexibility and emphasis between the two languages. English has a relatively rigid SVO, or subject-verb-object, structure. For example, she reads books, with she being the subject, reads the verb, books the object, is the correct way to pronounce that sentence. We cannot say in English, reads she books, where the verb, subject, object, word order. Changing the word order usually results in a grammatically incorrect sentence. Spanish is more flexible with word order due to its rich verb conjugation system, which indicates the subject. While SVO is common, variations like VSO or OSV can also be used for emphasis or stylistic reasons without altering the core meaning. Ella lee libros is following the subject-verb-object order, but I can also say ella libros, which is verb-subject-object. Both are correct, and the meaning of the sentence is not changed. Another key difference in the two languages is subject pronoun omission. In English, the subject is almost always explicitly stated. He eats pizza, with he being the subject. In Spanish, the subject pronoun is often omitted because verb endings indicate the subject. For example, él come pizza can instead be said as come pizza, which removes the subject and still remains correct. In summary, both languages share an SVO base. Spanish allows more flexibility in word order and often omits the subject pronoun. The syllable structure of Spanish and English differs in terms of complexity and phonological constraints. One of the differences between English and Spanish syllable structure is how consonants can be clustered. English allows for complex consonant clusters, both at the beginning and end of syllables. For example, words like spring with the cluster spr or texts with the ending cluster ks demonstrate that English can handle multiple consonants together in a syllable. Spanish, on the other hand, has stricter rules about consonant clusters. Spanish typically does not allow more than two consonants together at the beginning of a syllable, and those clusters are more restricted. Pl, pr, bl are some examples of commonly allowed consonant clusters at the beginning of a syllable. Plato represents a beginning consonant cluster. Additionally, Spanish words rarely end in consonant clusters. For example, textos breaks up the final cluster. Spanish tends to have an open syllable structure. Favoring syllables that end in vowels. This makes Spanish syllables relatively simple and fluid. For example, the word amigo consists of open syllables. A, mi, go, consonant vowel, consonant vowel, consonant vowel. English allows both open and closed syllables. Closed syllables are syllables that end in consonants, CVC. For example, cat follows a closed syllable structure, which is more common in English than Spanish. In summary, Spanish syllables are generally simpler, with fewer consonant clusters and a preference for vowel final structures, including consonant clusters and closed syllables. By using contrastive analysis and identifying key differences between the Spanish and English languages, we are able to predict what may cause struggles during second language acquisition. Spanish's syllables often end in vowels, so Spanish speakers may add vowels where English has closed syllables. For example, pronouncing cat as catta could occur as learners adjust to consonant final syllables. For an English learner who is a native Spanish speaker, we can predict that they may have difficulty with English's more complex clusters, especially when they occur at the beginning or end of words. For example, words like strength or splendid may be difficult for Spanish speakers to pronounce, leading to the insertion of extra vowels in saying esplendid. Spanish lacks certain sounds found in English, such as the sh sound in ship or the th in think. Spanish learners may replace these unfamiliar sounds with those they are more comfortable with, leading to mispronunciations like saying sip instead of ship. Since English has a more rigid SVO word order, Spanish speakers who are used to a flexible word order might find it challenging to always maintain the fixed subject, verb, object structure in English. Native Spanish speakers learning English aren't the only ones who can be predicted to face some obstacles while learning. Native English speakers learning Spanish will have difficulties too. English speakers might have difficulty with Spanish sounds that do not exist in English, such as the rolled or trilled R. Additionally, pronouncing the Spanish B and V, which can sound quite similar, may be confusing for English speakers learning Spanish. English speakers may not fully adjust to the vowel-centric nature of Spanish syllables, leading to more clipped pronunciation. For example, amigo might be pronounced too abruptly with less emphasis on the fluid vowel sounds. English speakers may struggle to understand or produce variations in Spanish word order, especially when Spanish uses verb, subject, object order or omits the subject pronoun, which is less common in English. These differences create specific pronunciation, syntax, and comprehension challenges for learners of either language. To improve teaching materials and support strategies for learners of English or Spanish based on the identified areas of difficulty, here are some tailored suggestions. Teaching materials should focus on gradual exposure to complex materials or concepts, starting with more basic rules, pronunciations, and so forth, then moving on to more difficult concepts. Teachers should use pronunciation drills with visual aids to highlight each sound in clusters, breaking them down and practicing each sound in isolation. By focusing on listening comprehension activities that emphasize syllable identification, then practicing speaking, other effective strategies include using videos, apps, and interactive websites that allow students to practice both pronunciation and listening comprehension based on their specific struggles. Encouraging language exchanges between native speakers of both languages help learners become comfortable with real-world language use. These strategies ensure that learners receive targeted support based on their language background, helping them overcome specific difficulties related to pronunciation, sentence structure, and language flow. Thank you for watching.